Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the Educational Leadership Podcast. We have another very special guest, but before we introduce our guest, I want to introduce our co-host, Corinne French.
Yay, I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you, Gary.
Yes, thank you. And we're traveling, but that doesn't stop us. We're using technology here. If we're on the road, the podcast show must go on, as they say. So,
Absolutely.
Before we introduce our guest, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Ideal Impact. Ideal Impact's given hundreds of millions of dollars to school districts around Texas. Over $700 million, over 190 districts in Texas have benefited from this type of funding. It's not a grant, it's recurring revenue every year to the district, unrestricted funds. So if your district needs funding for anything, teacher salaries or whatever it may be, reach out to Ideal Impact. Okay. Now time for our guest. Dr. Russell from Everman ISD. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. And just so everybody listening knows who you are and your background, share a little bit about your background.
All right. I've been in education. I believe this is my 26th year finishing up. I've been elementary teacher, 3rd grade, kindergarten, 2nd grade, and 4th grade. I've also been an assistant principal, director of federal programs, director of technology, and then director of communications and policy, and now I'm chief of communications and marketing. So a wide range.
That is so cool. We've had a lot of conversations.
That's exciting.
We've had conversations with different superintendents. This is a unique interview because I don't think we've had a communication and marketing leader on our podcast. So tell us a little bit about that career path and kind of what that looks like.
Well, I enjoy being over communications. A new day every day, something different. I say I'm like the grandmother, because you get to go to the campuses, but then you get to leave the kids come back. So we get to be the positive, tell the great things happening in the district. Also work with the media outside, community partners, business partners. So it's a gamut. And we're busy every day, all day, and sometimes at night.
Yeah, I'm wondering, when you first started and you were a teacher in those first years, did you see yourself in this role?
Well, so my first degree is actually in marketing. So I was one of those people that was fighting going into education because my mom was a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher. And I was like, I'm not going into education, but it was in me. So I took that path, and when the opportunity came up to start a department here in Everman, the superintendent at the time, Dr. Amos, asked me if I wanted to start it because he knew I had a marketing background, and I was like, yes. So it came full circle. I always tell my parents I'm using all my degrees now.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. What a story.
Yes.
What a legacy. Yeah. So when I think about the communication, the marketing piece right now for schools, you have to be all over the place all the time.
Oh, yes.
Years ago, the marketing of a district didn't seem like it was as important. And now we all have websites. Everyone's looking at everyone's districts, and that's good. We can share resources and share ideas, but what have been some of the challenges and then maybe unexpected joys over the last year or two with this role?
So I would say the last year or two, probably the pandemic spearheaded marketing and communications more so than it had in the past. We had to make sure that all our parents knew all the information on time, accurate information. So social media played a big role in making sure to get our message out. We had to pivot quickly, going from in-person learning to online. So we had to make sure parents knew where to come pick up information, computers. Every day we served food. So making sure they knew where to come get food. So it became an important role where now communication was at the table with everyone else, giving feedback. Well, we need to get it out this way. So it's a vital role, and now everyone sees how important communications is.
Yeah, it's funny so the last interview we had, we were talking about kind of the shifts in public education and how public education kind of has to sell itself a little bit,
Exactly.
because
Yes.
there's different options out there. And
Right.
so what's that change? Is there change around that right now that, where trying to, I guess there's a couple ways to approach it. There's probably more than a couple ways, but one is to be more, not share as much information. And then the other is just put yourself out there. I mean, what kind of shifts are you seeing around that?
Well, we take the initiative of sharing all our positive that's going on, making sure everyone in the community knows the great things happening in the district, from athletics, from arts, from academics, making sure they know our district is a B-rated district, making sure they know our curriculum. So we should probably share more, because we want everyone to know the great things that's happening in our district. So that's the approach I take.
I love that approach. I mean, that's transparency. That's,
Yes.
sharing the positive, because you really have to. I mean, if there's people out there that aren't supporting public education, they need to hear the good things that are going on. And that's what we do on here, is to share all the good things that are happening. So, because there's a lot of good things happening.
More good than bad, but that's our job, to make sure that the great.
Absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit more about those partnerships. So you mentioned, partnerships with the community and with businesses. And I always mention Tomball ISD because they're always doing some cool stuff out there with partnerships. But what are you guys doing?
So we have a special partnership with School Revenue, and they help us for businesses come in, and they might do advertisement on our website and everything, and then we get incentives from that. We have partnerships with local credit union, and they apply, like next week, Teacher Appreciation Week. They called and said, hey, we would like to come and donate like snack baskets for the campuses. Great, that helps us to show our teachers how great they are, and things like that. Our local, we have a local barbecue place. They always donate items. Local Mexican food restaurant give us a great discount anytime we need food for our any meetings or anything. We also have a huge event, our back to school bash, that serves over about 4,000 people every year, and it's usually in July. And so that's a great way to get our community out, our students out, and everything is given to them for free: food, backpack, supplies, and everything. So, and our partners help us be able to do that.
I love that. No, that's awesome. It's kind of that, there's so many different ways to look at things, perspectives, or mindset, or different lenses people see things. And it seems like the approach at your district is for everyone to be working together, right?
Yes.
It's not a us versus them mentality, which sometimes you see out there. It's like, look, we're all in this together. We have the community. We have these partnerships. We're sharing all the good stuff that's happening. Very exciting. Corinne, was there a question you had?
Well, yeah, the partnerships, I think, are such an important place, as we are going to have to market public ed as being of the best choice for the family. I am interested in the approach. Like, do you have cameras at every event? Do you have a photographer? Do you count on the students to send pictures? And I'm thinking of it this way: of maybe some of our districts that are smaller and don't have a communications director, but maybe a teacher or someone else is doing it, and they have a stipend to do that. Like, what are some things and what are some ways that you go about getting the good message out? And then maybe some tips for districts that don't actually have a communications director like yourself.
Okay, I have an awesome team. It's 5 of us, so I have an awesome team, so that helps. But we also use a system called Class Intercom, that our high school students use, and that's the way that they, in our yearbook club, they use that, and they can post, like if they're at a football game, the students can take over and they can post. Of course, the post come to one of us to approve before it goes out, but that's an easy way to get the students involved, and that actually gives more analytics when it's just us posting. They love to see the kids post. So that's one way we use Class Intercom. Anybody can use it. You can be a no-man team, a one-man team, or a huge team, but you can use your students and they can be the content producers there. So we use that, but I have I have a communication specialist and a website social media specialist, and both of them great video, graphic, anything like that. So we're probably at most events. And then also the principals have access to Class Intercom on each campus, and they can post as well. So we use every resource.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's brilliant. So it's called Class Intercom. It's called, did I hear it right? Class Intercom.
Yes, it's Class Intercom.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. That gives them the autonomy and some of the power to the students to put what they
Yes.
think is important. I love that you're getting it from their view.
Yes.
And I think that's very special. Some students, that are on the yearbook committee, they're going to go around and maybe the classes they like, or if they're assigned to a project or whatever. But this way, anyone has access, anyone. And I love that you say you are monitoring. So it's not going to go up live if you don't want it to go live. But I love that. That's a wonderful way to get your students involved. The student voice is really important to me. What are some other ways that you capture what's important to the students and the ways that you're listening to your students right now?
So we do invite our students, our high school students, to participate in our podcast as well. And they get to interview Dr. Donaldson, our superintendent, ask her questions, spare the moment. And we don't prep her because we want natural responses. And so they love that. And she's always on campuses. So we get to follow her around, and the kids just stop her in this. And, hey, Dr. Donaldson, can we change the dress code? Crocs a big thing for high school students, and they love Crocs. So the little things that, if that inspires them to come to school. And this generation of youth, they're not scared to ask. They will ask if they think it's benefit them. So we just get out there, and we try to be out at least 2 to 3 times a week on campuses.
I love that intentionality. Dr. Ott mentioned that about scheduling time to be in with the students. And if you don't schedule that time as a superintendent or as a cabinet member like yourself, it won't happen. You have to be intentional. And I love that you're doing that. That's powerful. So I always like to ask what books you're reading, what podcast, what author, like who's inspiring you right now to continue to do the work in public ed?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see.
Or conferences, like if there's a professional conference that you like to go to. I just think it's helpful when other people might be trying to be communication directors at their districts and shift. I think it's just fun to know what the leaders are listening to or what inspires them.
Yes, I do. So we just finished our our TSPR conference at the end of February. So we've implemented some of that. And we just learned how to do reels on Instagram. So I was like, oh, okay. So we learned that yesterday in one of our TSPR trainings online webinars. So we learned how to do that. And one of the counterparts was from Judson ISD. So she taught us how to do reels. We'll be going to a social media conference coming up soon. And also Final Sight will sponsor a school PR day. We'll be participating in that. Our team loves to learn. So anytime it's something new, And I don't like to do the
Mhm.
same thing. I like to switch it up. So it's like, oh, let's try this. If it fails, then like, okay, we know next time we'll try something else. But we always want to learn. Probably the book is by his last name is Pink, and it's Drive. We've been reading that. So
Yeah,
uh,
Daniel Pink. Mhm.
yes,
Mhm.
thank you. I
Mhm.
couldn't think of the first. I
Yeah,
was like, is it bad?
it's a
Yes.
Yeah, I'm reading that now. I'm listening to an Audible. It's great. But I want to comment on something. I like that you mentioned learning how to do reels. I think as leaders, we get so caught up in wanting to think that we have to learn some great concept when truly we need to be learning very simple things that are easy. It's not easy. It's probably not easy to learn to do a reel, but that's something that it's a low cost. It doesn't cost a lot of money for you to learn how to do a reel. And I think
Right.
as educators, we've got to be taking the chances, the low hanging fruit, as we can, and
Right.
then stepping out and doing the larger thing. So I commend you for saying that. I think that was a really great way to show how to be a lifelong learner. So that was great.
Yes, and it was fun.
Yeah. Well, I have the last question, and
Okay.
before I ask the question, I just want to say I really like how you're involved in the students and what you are doing on the campuses, because I don't know, I'm pretty passionate about students kind of learning how to apply what they're learning in school to something, work related a little bit,
Right.
and it sounds like you are doing a great job of preparing them for a lot of different types of roles.
Yes.
So it's very exciting. Okay, well, this is going to be the most difficult question. So I want you to
Okay.
prepare yourself. And so no, what if you were to have another leader in public ed come on the podcast and share their story like you did today, who would that be?
Oh, that's easy. I would recommend two people actually. Dr. Phillips, who's our Chief Academic Officer. His name is Kentrell Phillips, and our Student Services Director, Mr. Miller.
Oh, we would love that. They'll be the first of that
Yeah.
in that role that we will interview, and that will be lovely. Thank
Yes.
you.
That might be a good one to do, like a joint podcast. Bring them. We can talk about that.
Oh yeah, we've had them on a district podcast before, and it was one of our best ones.
No, that
Then maybe we'll do that. We might take that idea. That's great, Gary.
yeah. Well, super. So we'll definitely reach out to them because we'd love to have their perspective. That'll be a unique perspective that we would have had on the podcast. So that'll be very cool. Okay. Well, I just want to say thank you again for coming on the podcast today. Very excited about today's interview and being able to share it with all our listeners. So thank you, Dr. Russell.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and before we close,
thank you, Dr. Russell. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and well, before we close out, just want to give one last shout out to our sponsor, Ideal Impact. Ideal Impact's given hundreds of millions of dollars to school districts around Texas, over $700 million, over 190 districts in Texas. So if your district needs unrestricted funds, don't just wait on the government. Get the funding that's available right now. It's at zero out of pocket to your districts, and it's in the form of a free gift. So reach out to Ideal Impact. And for those of you all that have been tuning in, stay tuned for future episodes of the Educational Leadership Podcast.